After Confucianism, the most influential school of thinking, which had its roots in the Warring States period, was Taoism. Traditionally, its major thinker has been identified as Laozi, who kept records at the Zhou court in the 6th century BCE. Pure Taoism built on the idea of a natural harmony. Happiness could be achieved by following the way of nature, living in natural simplicity, in which the yin and yang, earth and heaven, male and female, white and black, were in balance. The Taoists taught compassion, humility, and avoiding selfishness, and even the struggle for improvement and for civilization. Taoism merged with ancestor worship. In practice, the Taoist temples that we visited were mainly places where people came to seek assistance from specific gods or ancestors. The oldest Taoist temple we visited was Fengdu Ghost City, on a mountain high above the Yangtze River, 170 kilometers from Chongqing. We were taken up the mountain in a cable car. The temple combines elements from a range of Chinese myths and religions, and according to legends goes back around 2,000 years. For example, one finds here a temple to the Yellow Emperor. However, the focus of the temple is on the afterlife. It dramatizes the tests for people passing to the next life. The first test is at the Bridge of Helplessness, which is a test for good and evil. Demons stand at the bridge and allow people to enter, or, according to legend, push people into the stream of water below. Then they must present themselves before Yama, king of hell. A god who has his origins in Hinduism was brought to China by the Buddhists, along with his cohort of demons. Thirdly, they must stand on one foot at the entrance to the Tianzi Palace. This building is the oldest of the current buildings on this site and built around 300 years ago. This corridor contains statues illustrating the punishments in the afterlife and the demons who live there. The most recent building is the Last Glance to Home Tower, built in 1985, where according to legend the dead can have one last look towards their home and their families. Perhaps this little garden here is a taste of heaven. There are no signs of demons around this particular part of it. We also visited the Taoist Temple in the small town of Pingyao. It was originally constructed about 1,000 years ago in the Song dynasty, but was rebuilt on the original lines in 1864 after a major fire. The Pingyao Taoist Temple contained 3 smaller temples. The Temple of the City God, which is the law court of the city god. The Kashen Temple, dedicated to the god of wealth. And the Zhaojin Temple, dedicated to the kitchen god. We witness an enactment of a ceremony seeking rain at the temple.
大人，快惊起也吧！当官不为民做主，不如回家卖红薯。时人万民还陛下恩重，叩拜玉皇大帝。
车夫老爷，下过体贴的黎民百姓，谢谢你了。
微光一人，合掌言谢。来，去爷的张路进行来。
记下了，再报为苦。
解民之苦，刻不容缓呐！玉环在上，不救天下的生灵吧！降雨吧，雨来，雨来啊！ 开，身体健康，恭喜发财，谢谢。
A third Taoist temple was the City Temple in Shanghai. This temple has a long history, originally dedicated to the spirit of Jinshan, or Golden Mountain. In 1403 it became the city god temple, where people came to pray for good fortune and peace. That aspect of the temple remains, dedicated to 3 people who played significant roles in the Shanghai area and are now recognized as gods or significant ancestors of the city. However, the temple was handed to the Taoist Association in 1951, and since 1994 has had resident Taoist priests. People still come here to pay their respects to the city gods, to thank them for their prosperity and seek greater prosperity. On the other hand, there are some Taoist spiritual practices held at the temple. Another temple often referred to as a Taoist temple is the Man Mo Temple in Hong Kong. It was built in 1847 and is dedicated to the civil god, or god of literature, Man Chong, and the martial god, Quan Tai. Scholars and students come here to seek assistance in their studies, and particularly in the civil examinations for positions in the public service. It also has a hall where civil disputes are settled. As in many of the Taoist temples, Taoism merges into folk religion. The Chinese are pragmatic, worshipping whatever gods might help them, and without too much regard for the underlying philosophies of the religions. The Temple of Heaven is the most important Chinese temple in Beijing. It is often described as a Taoist temple, and its design was certainly influenced by Taoist symbols. The primary purpose of the temple was for an annual ceremony at the winter solstice, in which the Emperor of China came to pray to heaven for a good harvest in the following year. Construction of this temple occurred between 1406 and 1420 in the Ming dynasty. The emperor would spend a night in the Hall of Abstinence before the major ceremony. He would then make his prayers in the Hall of Prayer for Good Harvests. This central building was highly symbolic. The roof, coloured blue, symbolised the sky or heaven. The yellow symbolised the earth, and the green the world of mortal life. The centre of the building are 4 large columns representing the seasons, and 24 smaller pillars symbolise the months in a year, plus the 12 two-hour time periods in a day. The emperor was known as the Son of Heaven, and thus had a special role of mediator between heaven and earth, symbolised in the building and in the ceremony. Tablets inside the temple represented the ancestors who were worshipped by the emperor. In the western annex were housed other tablets representing attendant ancestors. These were also honoured by the emperor. Before the major ceremonies, a calf was put on this stove and burned with pine twigs and reeds to welcome the God of Heaven. After the ceremony, all the offerings, ceremonial placards and silk scrolls were burnt, while the emperor watched. Thus, underlying popular and even imperial Chinese religion is a belief in the ancestors, who could, under certain circumstances, become gods. Honouring them may well bring blessings. From good harvest for the nation as a whole, to success in studies for the individual, to prosperity in business, and perhaps even a pleasant life in the hereafter.